Thanks for coming back to a Folding Cultures classroom video, and I am excited to be recording this particular video today on November 1st of 2025 in Kyiv, Ukraine, and I am so glad to be here. I have had some great times with some of my former students here at Kyiv Theological Seminary, and I will be showing a picture of what we were doing this past few days here in Kyiv. Yes, the war is still going on. The Russian invasion continues here. I have had the blessing of having a fairly quiet week in the midst of a lot of missile and drone attacks in the weeks previous, and unfortunately I believe will be in the coming days ahead as well. But let me show you, I have the blessing of being right on in the center of Kyiv, and it works really good for our topic today, because it's going to be talking about creating a CV for a youth worker, a youth ministry. And we are in the center of Kyiv, where the business center here. This is on the main city street in the center called Kreshchatyk, and I am in near a lot of the government buildings and the businesses that are here. So really a place of professionalism here, and we're talking about being professionals in youth ministry today. So good background for the topic, and I'm glad that you've joined me as a student today to learn a little bit about this topic as we go forward. So I will be sharing a PowerPoint with you, and also be talking a little bit about some of the basics of creating a youth worker's CV or resume. The terms are fairly interchangeable. In the educational world, the CV term is used a little bit more, so we'll use that today. But I have had the privilege of teaching youth workers in this area a little bit. And as I said yesterday, I got to meet with these wonderful men. These are all youth ministry professors here in Ukraine, and they're still in Ukraine and serving here. Let me go a little closer in for you so you can see them. Around the table there, we're talking about how to work on our curriculum and working in different areas. I am a partner to them, but they are running the programs here in about 3 or 4 different Bible colleges now, even during the time of the war and the invasion. So do pray for them as they continue to serve. They were my students in this particular class that we're talking about, relating to a youth minister's CV, all right? Now, why do we even talk about this? I mean, is this an important subject? I think so. It just helps bring a little bit greater communication to those that you are working with and for. We do not work in a vacuum. We work with churches, we work with seminaries, we work with Bible colleges for the sake of raising up youth ministers and youth workers. So even though this verse is very important, all right, and it really helps us bring a little bit of, balance to this particular subject. Psalm 75 verses 6 and 7 say, "For not from the east or from the west and not from the wilderness comes exaltation, but God is the judge. He puts down one another and exalts another." So as we think about sharing and talking about ourselves with the CV or our resume, I want to remind us that the goal is not to lift ourselves up. This is not to exalt ourselves. It is only a communication tool to share with others our experience, not lying, but sharing our experiences in youth ministry, sharing the gifts that we bring to the table. And so this is just a communication tool in relationship to that. Prayerfully, it raises up the professionalism of our position. A youth worker is an important position in the church, in youth ministry. And so we want to recognize that and recognize it. It's a specialization that needs to have a focus so that young people, so that teenagers raise up. Now, in the educational fields, We do know that you can get certified or licensed as a teacher in many different countries or in states in the U.S., but also the realization is that there are specializations within those educational models. So for instance, you could get a degree in pedagogy related to elementary education, or maybe in secondary education, or in a specific topic such as chemistry or biology. Same with youth ministry. This is a focus, it's a ministry degree, it's a ministry focus, yet there is also a specialization related to reaching teenagers and young people for the sake of leadership and development, and also, of course, with the gospel of Christ. So let's go ahead and continue on in talking about specifically some personal leadership development and the idea of a CD. What is the purpose of a CV? Well, the first thing that it does is it communicates who you are to other people. It is going to share with them your ministerial gifts that you possess, and also reflect your personality, hopefully, as well, within the CV, and maybe even some specifics. We'll talk about that in a moment. It summarizes your qualifications. This is very important, and it covers your background to others. So, and this background could be related in many areas. This background could be related to where you are from, your culture, and also it could be related to your family, but most importantly also it's likely related to your educational background as well. So you are communicating to that person that might be hiring you, or maybe it's not necessarily for a financial position. Sometimes the CV or resume is simply for a position related to a ministry position that doesn't relate to finances. That's another topic, okay, for another day. We're simply talking about communicating who you are, your gifts, your background, and other things too. So let's go on to talk a little bit more about specifics. Now, as you write your CV, this is important to think about. Who is your audience? Who are you writing this for? CVs change regularly. My CV would change yearly, probably, okay? Now, as I get up in age, it doesn't change quite as much, all right? But in the early years of my life, it did change at least annually, all right? And so it is a living document. It's a document that you keep, a Word document probably, or some other kind of a document on your computer, and that you have that available to change and to upgrade, especially when you're thinking about audience. For the audience is the one that you're sending this to specifically. You want to focus on specific areas of ministry God has called you to and what they're interested in hearing from you. You need to eliminate irrelevant information that might be related to one particular audience and not another. Know your audience and adjust it for them. For instance, let's say that your CV actually is for a secular job that you're applying for. Fine. You just may take out some of the ministry experience that's on your CV that you would give if you were applying to a church position or a ministry position, and vice versa. So you're going to think about your audience and you're going to adjust your CV according to this audience. Now, specifically for today, we're of course focusing on a youth minister or youth worker's CV. So most likely this is being prepared for someone, a congregation or someone in ministry that you're going to give this to receive a job. For example, today maybe we'll say that you're applying to become a youth ministry professor at your local seminary, all right? Then that's a CV. We'll think of that as in regards to what it includes and what it doesn't include. So what does the CV include? Let's talk about that for a moment. Well, there is some obvious things, but there are some things that I just want to make sure we cover so that you include it in your CV as you're writing it. The first thing would be personal data, of course. This is the simple thing. How are they going to contact you with address, phone, email, these kind of things. You also could probably include a personal statement or profile of some kind of who you are. This could be a simple sentence, or it could be even a paragraph long. You will include your education, of course, your educational experience. You're probably not going to put your elementary school where you attended, but those things that are important for this particular job, all right? Also, in this educational area, by the way, include things that are like certificates or certifications, maybe some licensing that you have received that might be important for the job you're applying for. Also, of course, your experience related to your audience. What are things that are related to the audience? You may not need to include all of your experiences in this. Honors that you've received, interests that you might have, some activities you're involved in, and at the bottom of the CV, most likely you will include 3 references. Now again, these can change annually or regularly, and you would want to make sure that you can include these references on your CV. Make sure they know, the people that you put as references, that you are putting them on as a reference, especially if you're giving off your CV that day to somebody or in the next week to somebody else. Communicate to your references as well. Now, this kind of information, let me just share 2 experiences. Let's go to that specifically topic. Experiences that you might include related to this, once again, or even licensing that might help you in that particular job. Let's talk about, for instance, a Christian camp. Maybe you're applying, maybe there is a full-time position for a Christian camp for a director, all right, or a program director for this Christian camp. And they are very interested in hiring you or having you give you this position. Well, maybe being a lifeguard, a licensed lifeguard, someone that can, of course, save people from a swimming accident or something like that, might be helpful for this particular position. Showing that licensing there will be very good. Or even something like a CPR training that you've received. Or, I don't know, for other things too, we in Youth for Christ International, we certified our coaches. It's a year-long process of becoming a certified registered coach. This is very good to show on a resume that you have gone through this process, because it's a skill that you have learned how to do and that you are now a certified coach. Include that on your CV. So these are some of the ideas. There are probably several others that you're going to include too, but maybe the fact that you are certified to be going scuba diving might be something that you might not include in your CV because it might not be necessary for that particular job. Let's go on and talk about some specifics, okay? Some individual ideas that you might want to consider as you put this whole CV together. Also, we'll give you some examples at the end I'm going to share with you as well. My own personal CV too, so stay tuned. Let's talk about some ideas here. Now, allow plenty of time for yourself to prepare this. If you need a CV tomorrow to turn it into somebody, I pray that you have already been working on this in the past, because this is not something you want to do the night before. Organize it well. And think through the headings and the topics, and we'll show you some suggestions as we go further with this. You do not need to list a vocational objective unless you really want to. This would be, that would be getting more specific. That might not be necessary for this. For instance, saying that I want to become the senior pastor of this church someday. Maybe don't list that, especially if you're not applying for that position, all right? Avoid abbreviations as you go through your CV. For instance, I just used the word CV, all right? Most of us don't realize that that's a Latin term, and in fact, I've even forgot it, what it actually means right now. Look, Google it, go ahead yourself, all right? But cita something or something like that, I don't speak Latin. So anyway, these abbreviations can become a problem later on, all right? That you particularly, maybe you always use the abbreviation for a school that you attended or a job or that you were used to be in with your work experience. Well, be sure to write them all out because the person that you're writing this for may not know what that abbreviation means. Don't use, please use some telegraphic phrases, not sentences and paragraphs, except for possibly your profile statement. That would be the one exception for that. So most likely it's not going to be full sentences. These are going to be phrases in your CV. Employ active language, for instance, adapted, or I launched something, or led this, or organized this. Those are good words to use in a CV. And this whole idea about a photo on your CV, that is in very much debate all over the internet, okay, and on the different positions. So use a photo on your CV if it's appropriate. And also maybe look a little bit of where you're applying or where you're giving that CV to see what others have done in advance. Because many times photos are not included. Sometimes they are, sometimes they are not. For me personally, I like a small little photo on a CV, and you'll see that on mine. But it's not necessary. And sometimes it's considered not professional to include the photo. So make sure that it's also a professional photo when you do include it as well. Let's go on and look at the next ideas, the next reminders here I have for you, or suggestions. Include full information about your license or ordination to ministry. If you have also been, for instance, I am ordained as a minister, you would include that. Adjust the length of your CD to match your qualifications. 1 to 2 pages is usually the norm. Going beyond 2 pages is rare and maybe a little bit too much information. Be sure that the CV is free of typographical, spelling, and grammatical errors, all right? You might even have someone else read it through for you. And to help you make sure, especially a good editor, my wife is an amazing editor, so she does a great job of this for me. Try to resist gimmicks, okay, by saying something like, you know, I am an expert at determining M&Ms on what color they is by just putting it in my mouth and tasting it. This is not necessary and also is a gimmick. Put your name on the top of each page of your CV with the page number is a good idea in the professional way. So not always done, but it's a good idea. Now, I would love to share with you some examples because that's where it comes down to, like, seeing, what does it look like? What does a CV look like in my particular context? Now, CVs look different country to country, and resumes do, but honestly, there is some kind of a global internationalization of generally what they look like. So that's what I'm talking about today. But be sure to specifically see how your country does CVs. How are the positions that you're talking about? How do they look like for you? Okay? So I am going to share with you an example from Ukraine. As you see, I am in Kiev right now. So this would be an appropriate example for us today. When I taught here at Kiev Theological Seminary, my students in their final class would have to write a profile and include a CV in this profile of themselves that maybe they might be able to use someday in a particular ministry, all right? So I was in this office that I used to teach at just yesterday, and I took this picture of all the CVs and profiles of my students that were created during their final year of their bachelor's degree program, actually. And in that, I found one that I particularly really liked. Her name is Alina, and I know her pretty well. I've gotten to see her a few times after her graduation, about 10 years or more so. Now she's married with children, and she lives in Italy, actually. She married an Italian, and they have just a wonderful family there living in central Italy. And also, are serving the Lord in their church. She doesn't have a position, I don't think, in the church necessarily, but serving the church. But when she was my student, she actually was a master's student here in Kiev, she created this CV, okay? And it's hard to see possibly on your screen, depending on how big a screen you have that you're looking at right now. Sorry about all the small wording there. But it is in Ukrainian language, her resume. She did include a little photograph there on it, but she has it organized very well. This is a great example of how she has basically her information, her contact information at the beginning. Her full name is spelled out as it should be. She has a goal statement, or sort of a purpose statement. Hers is very interesting. She says she wants living with eternal joy in the power of the Holy Spirit, growing in the Lord Jesus Christ, spreading the gospel, impacting other lives so the name of the Lord may be glorified. Now, that is more of a spiritual truth, an example. Obviously, if she's applying to become the accountant at a local bank or something like that, she probably won't put that as her goal. But I think that's very sweet of her desire to share this. She didn't know where she was preparing this resume for, so she was very general with that. You should be probably more specific. She lists all of some of her educational things there. She has her work experience, some work experience, and what she decides to do is do work experience versus service experience. In other words, volunteer as church leader, or actually as a leader with Crew here in Ukraine, and what is called campus here, and some of her leadership involved in that. At the bottom of it, she includes dates and years, and also she included as well some references of people that they could contact as well. Of course, then this is a living document. This would not be how she'd write it today. I know that for sure. And this is something that we will need to change also as we grow in our own lives as now. So that's one example for you from a dear Ukrainian student that I had at the seminary. I have my own personal CV example above here. Now mine is a little bit more in the maybe the professional side, or how do I say it? It's more of where I'm at today. And so I have a paragraph or two as a profile in my CV. I'm not going to go ahead and read through that right now, but this is given to maybe somebody that also might be wanting to share some information about me as a speaker when I'm going to speak somewhere, and they might need that information there. I have my educational things listed there. I also put my language proficiencies, since I do happen to speak Russian. On the second page of it, I put my experiences of the different positions that I've had in ministry and the years that I had those particular positions as well. For this CV, I happen to put the specific topics or college courses that I have taught internationally, both at the bachelor's and master's level. And most of them are at a 40-hour lecture standpoint, so I list all of the different courses that I have taught through the years. And then also a listing of seminars or presentations that I taught, my actual PhD dissertation title and where it can be found, and my personal website. So those are some ideas that you could include in your CV. Of course, my particular CV is specific for somebody that's been in ministry for over 30 years, all right? And so that's what that might look for, all right, in that particular setting. Yours is going to be different. No matter what, yours is specific to you. And that is an important point that I wanted to end with. Your CV is a reflection of your calling and even your personality and who you are. But so don't try to make it something that it's not, but also try to match the professionalism that's necessary or needed in the world that we live in today, because you're thinking about the audience that you're giving it to, and also pray about it over and over again as you create it. If you are one of my students in this class right now and watching this because you're required to watch this particular lecture, you will now create a CV. You will need to write a CV based on some of the topics that I've had here. If you already have one, you can adjust it. And I would like you specifically, if you're in my class, to think about writing it for the audience of a Bible college that is looking to hire a new youth ministry professor, and that you will be training up new youth workers with your degree. And so share a little bit about yourself if you were interested in creating a CV for that job. But be honest, never ever lie about anything. Don't exaggerate. We let other people exaggerate for us, okay? And make sure that it's a reflection of your calling. I have really enjoyed sharing with you this topic. It's been so fun for me to do this here in the center of Kiev. And I just really pray that wherever you are and watching this right now, that this will be helpful as you seek to use the gifts that God has given you for the sake of raising up young people and helping them understand who Jesus is and disciple them and lead them into also equipping others themselves. So thank you so much for watching this. Let me know if there's any questions that you have in regards to creating a youth worker CV. God bless you.